Aloha, good afternoon, and thank you for joining this afternoon's live stream of the University of Hawaii at Hilo Chancellor Bonnie D. Irwin's State of the University Address. Please join me in welcoming Chancellor Irwin to the stage.
Thank you, Lee. He honua o iwi o Hawai'i. Nona ka po'e o iwi a ka aina. Oia na kanaka Hawai'i. Aia kia kula nui ma kia a hupua'a o Waiakea ma ka moko o Hilo. Kuno ke kula nui o Hawai'i ma Hilo. I ka ho'oike ke ake kula nui o Hawai'i. E ho'olu I ke ola o ke kaiaulu owi. Mau ka hana kalaiki ma nā kahua kula he umi o ka onehana papahana ho o iwe kula nui I ka paia o Hawai'i Papukeao. He leo aloha kea I ka poe a pau e a koa ana I anei. Hawaii is an indigenous space whose original people are today identified as Native Hawaiians. The university is in the land division called Waiakea in the district of Hilo. The University of Hawaii at Hilo aligns with the University of Hawaii system commitment to fostering the well-being of indigenous communities through academic processes put into effect with its 10-campus system-wide transformation called Hawai'i Papukeao. This land acknowledgement welcomes everyone who gathers here. Aloha mai kako. A little over a year ago, I was preparing to deliver a State of the University address, the first that would have been made by a University of Hawaii Hilo chancellor in several years. COVID-19, however, had other plans for us. And so I ended up incorporating some of those remarks in Zoom sessions and in blog posts. However, as we emerge from the pandemic, it is time to take stock and look ahead. And thus I welcome you into this physical and virtual space today. Sorry about that. Forgot I was doing slides. This is the land acknowledgement I read earlier. Very important to always acknowledge the original inhabitants of this land and the gratitude that we have for them. So let us begin with COVID. Our ohana has stepped up in more ways than I can possibly recognize here today, but I want to offer some mahalos. To auxiliary and environmental health and safety staff for making sure our spaces were properly cleaned and sanitized, rooms were measured and arranged for proper distancing and erecting signage across campus. Our campus security, who continued to make their rounds ensuring campus protocols were followed. Our student housing staff that worked tirelessly checking out those students who need to leave and keeping those who decided to stay safe and secure. For some of our students, our campus was the safest place for them to be at the beginning of the pandemic, and we made the commitment early on that we would keep our residence halls open for those students who needed us. Procurement staff worked creatively to find us needed supplies where they could, even with shortages that challenged them, and facilitated the emergency purchase of laptops so we could issue them to faculty and students in timely ways. Library and IT staff kept computer labs open and running and sanitized so that students had a place to come and continue their coursework. Distance learning faculty and staff quickly set up workshops for faculty to convert their classes to virtual delivery. Instructional faculty, in the space of only a week, moved their classes online, reached out to students, and kept them on task. Our academic affairs staff, who assisted with schedule changes, fiscal processes, and room preparation. Advisors and counselors found ways to serve students both near and far and were available to answer the phone, keep the office open, and continue to support our students. Our enrollment staff, admission and financial aid, despite the pandemic, still brought in one of the largest freshman classes in our history. Financial aid in the cashier's office pushed out waves of emergency aid to students, including the CARES relief funds. Our CUH staff helped to set up those CARES accounts and create the systems we use to allocate the funds. Staff in our clinical and science programs devised ways to hold in-person activities and keep our students safe. Our athletics staff came together to create safety protocols to allow students to practice and compete. Our Student Life Center provided sanitization protocols and virtual experiences to help our community stay healthy. Our student affairs staff came up with creative ways to welcome and engage students, again, and still keep everyone safe. Our chartered student organizations continue to live up to those charters by creatively planning safe face-to-face activities and virtual programs. Our faculty, once again, pivoted quickly and got their classes ready for the online and face-to-face environment in the fall. Our EEO Title IX staff, knowing the danger that some of our communities face, held a virtual domestic violence summit last fall. Our College of Pharmacy created health videos and, along with their colleagues in nursing, helped with the vaccine administration that is still going on. Our commencement team designed and held a virtual commencement in spring, a drive-through in fall, and is working to prepare a similar drive-through event for spring. Through it all, vice chancellors, deans, and directors helped steer the ship, making decisions efficiently and increasing their collaboration across divisions, helping to keep everyone calm and on task and creating space for us to continue our work. Our communications and web team helped us to keep the campus informed of every twist and turn, and there were many, as we responded to state, county, and university system guidelines and orders. And continue we did. Our community supported us as well. Vibrant Hawai'i contributed to food distribution for our food insecure students, formerly served by our food pantry. The county offered help with sanitization and helped Imiloa set up an educational program for local keiki. Our local hotels helped with student quarantine. And lest I forget our students, the amazing, resilient, hardworking students we have. They volunteered in the community and continue to do so. They kept up with their classes despite family obligations, internet challenges, and layoffs, and they stepped up to help faculty and their peers adjust to the online environment. That was a long list, but I really wanted to show the breadth of people who stepped up to the challenge. And there may certainly be a few more I inadvertently missed, but please know that I appreciate all of you. I congratulate you on your dedication, your creativity, and your resilience. I hope over holidays, breaks, and weekends you have found some time to rest and refresh. I am grateful for everyone in our ohana for what you have accomplished and how you have supported one another. Through it all, our campus community has worn masks, washed hands frequently, and perhaps the most difficult in the Aloha State, kept a physical distance from colleagues and friends on campus. We have learned, as we have so many times in the past when we have faced lava and hurricanes, how strong we are when we pull together and work for the good of all. As we approach the end of the academic year, I have one additional COVID-related request for everyone. Please get a vaccine. If you do not have a medical or religious reason not to get a vaccine, get a vaccine. It is our kuleana to keep both our campus and island community safe. Universities are institutions that lead the way, that follow the science, and take responsibility. Please get a vaccine. Despite all of the challenges, the general state of the campus is good, and I believe the outlook is bright. Here is a snapshot of our fall enrollment. We were once again named by U.S. News and World Report as the most diverse national university in the country. And you can see the evidence of that here. We still serve considerably more women than men, which is a nationwide trend, but something that we need to definitely pay attention to, particularly as it pertains to our on-island students. Another national trend is a decrease in international enrollment, which was certainly not helped by the pandemic. I'm looking forward to welcoming more international and out-of-state students back to our campus soon. But we are the University of Hawaii Island. And the fact is also borne out in this data, which shows that over 70% of our enrollment are in-state students, and over 50% is from our island. That reflects our primary responsibility. Pictured here is Kekoa Harmon chanting with his class online. Kekoa found that by teaching online, he could engage not only his students, but also local families in the learning of Hawaiian language. Our faculty, while diverse, does not reflect the diversity of our students, which means we need to work extra hard and make sure that our students feel seen, heard, and supported. And we need to do a better job during recruitments to ensure diverse pools of applicants so that we may further diversify the faculty. The good news is that the majority of our faculty, 178 out of 271, are tenured or tenure track, which provides stability to our campus and our educational mission. Pictured on this slide is Mariani Takamiya of the Physics and Astronomy Department. She's one of our international faculty members, and she spoke of the way she values our diversity and the fact that the campus is a melting pot of ideas. As is typical in a regional university, our staff diversity does reflect that of our campus and our students. I'm especially proud of the fact that so many of our staff are alumni. When a graduate opts to stay at the university from which they got their degree, it speaks well to the support they felt they had as a student and the quality of their experience. Their own journeys through the university enable them to better assist students in their journeys. Chelsea K. Wong, pictured on this slide, started working in the registrar's office as an upward-bound student intern and now directs the unit. Our diverse ohana is a tremendous asset to our community and to the education we provide. Our students become accustomed to living and working in a diverse environment. Our diversity is our strength, a fact that we have communicated to our accreditors at WASC in our recent institutional self-study for accreditation. So let's turn to some trends that we're seeing. Our total enrollment decreased from fall to fall. Student enrollment in fall 2020 was 6% less than it was in 2019. Given the way enrollments across the country decreased due to the pandemic, however, I am pleased that we held on as well as we did. Before the pandemic, we were definitely starting to change the trend, with the enrollment being down only 1% from 2018 to 2019. First-time freshman enrollment trend is more positive and continues to grow. The work of the Educational Advisory Board, along with our dedicated admissions and financial aid staff, has definitely helped here, as well as the efforts of people across the campus and the effort they put into open houses, answering questions from prospective students, and just generally supporting prospective students' journey into the campus. Business, psychology, marine science, and kinesiology and exercise science remain our most popular programs. Our transfer numbers, as you see on the other graph, are down, due in large part to a decline in transfers from our sister campus, Hawaii Community College. This decline speaks to the need to strengthen and streamline our pathways from the UHCC systems to, as well as from other colleges, actually, in the Pacific and on the continent. So we need to look at what we can do to make sure transfer students want to come to UH Hilo and have a good experience here. We continue to serve first-generation students well. Alongside this data is a photo of Nina Cardosa, a graduate of Honoka'a High School and now a doctor of pharmacy. She was able to get a college degree and pursue her chosen career close to home because of UH Hilo. Many of you who are alumni might also have been the first in your family to graduate from this university. If you're comfortable, share those stories with students. They will be inspired by your success as they strive for their own. On this slide, there are two trends I'd like to draw your attention to. Pell recipient numbers are down, which may at first look like a good sign, but is more likely that students of limited means are finding the path to college very difficult and choosing not to try. And so we need to work on that. The CARES federal relief money and other emergency aid we delivered to students certainly has helped, but it is an area to which we must attend. How can we work hand in hand with the community, make sure families know about the various kinds of financial aid that are available, fill out those FAFSAs, and find a way to get to our doors. Our number of students of Hawaiian ancestry remains robust, accounting for over a third of our enrollment and growing. Serving these students is a major part of our kuleana as a Hawaiian serving institution. So we should all be proud of those numbers and that trend. Our freshman to sophomore retention is good, but could be better. While we know some students come here for a year or two and then transfer to Manoa or a school on the continent, this is an area we need to study, as many of our aspirational peers hover closer to the 80% range in terms of freshman to sophomore retention. We need to dig a little deeper and find out what's going on with the first-year students who opt not to return for their sophomore year. Retention is the key to growing our enrollment. The more students who have good experiences here and are successful, the more students will want to attend our university. Our graduation rates are certainly affected by those retention rates. The good news is that the average time to degree is under 5 years. The not so good news is that not enough students are graduating. We shall be directing our attention even more strongly to student success in the new strategic plan, which I'll get to in a minute. If students are leaving UH Hilo because they find another path more suited to fulfilling their educational and life dreams, that's okay. If, however, they are leaving for a financial, academic, or personal challenge that we can help with, we can and we should be there for them. A student leaving college with debt and no degree, which happens far too often across the higher ed landscape, is a situation that we must do whatever we can to mitigate here at UH Hilo. For those of you who are not fans of bar charts and line graphs, here's much the same information on our strategic direction scorecard. We should be rightly proud of the fact that most of these indicators are green. Despite the fact that enrollments are down, we are meeting our targets for degrees earned. I'd like to draw our attention, however, to the credits to degree section. Most, if not all, baccalaureate degrees should be able to be earned in 120 to 125 credits. And while we are moving these measures in the right direction, we need to look at our transfer pathways and find out why students are taking on more than a semester's worth of extra credits to graduate. We've been talking about budget a lot this year. And while I am more optimistic about the next few years than I was several months ago, we need to stay fiscally conservative. Mahalo to all of you who have found ways to save large amounts and small amounts over the course of this last year. Despite the decrease in state funds, we are still fortunate in Hawaii that the state picks up nearly half of our costs, which means that we have fewer expenses that we have to pass on to families. As you can see from this graph, however, we are still heavily dependent on enrollment for revenue. Through conservative budgeting, we have been able to keep our tuition reserve strong, which will enable us to make investments in our future. In the long term, diversifying our revenue through grants, donations, and other sources will help us stabilize this budget. The legislature still has not decided on our government funds budget for the next biennium, but it is now looking as though the cuts will not be as deep as the ones the governor originally proposed. We have been able, for example, to reinstate the sabbaticals that were postponed last year. I am grateful for the understanding and patience of those faculty that we asked to wait a year before taking their sabbatical. This is much the same data along with expenses in a pie chart, which our budget director knows I am a big fan of. It's easier for me to kind of see the numbers in a pie. But here you can see that the balance between what we call G funds, our state appropriation, and tuition dollars, making up the lion's share of our budget, and most of those going to the expenses. One reason that we have a little bit of breathing room this year is the Higher Education Emergency Relief Funds, the third wave of which we are expecting soon. These are not shown on this chart, but have been of great assistance. With this support, we have been able to give emergency funds to students, employ more students on campus, purchase sanitization supplies and PPE, and to provide professional development for faculty and staff in the online environment. We've been able to fund some lecturer positions and some temporary staff in critical areas. We have also upgraded the technology in the classrooms to facilitate online, hybrid, and especially high-flex courses. As we move into the summer and fall, we will be supporting many of these same things, especially student aid, professional development related to the online environment, and technology upgrades to improve workflow processes and get us away from paper forms and manual processes, which take up valuable staff and faculty time away from the direct service to students. The federal relief funding, however, is one-time money and has many restrictions on what we can spend it on. But the goal is to spend a significant part of it on our people, to make students' educational journeys smoother and employees' professional activity more efficient and more rewarding. Two other important sources of funding are donations and grants. We are fortunate that our community supports us to the extent that they do. We will be working on refining our Hilo story over the coming months in order to continue to grow our community's investments in our institution and in the work that we do. And one of the ways we show our value to the community is through research. And this slide shows grant activity over the course of the last 5 years. Much of our extramural support comes by way of service awards such as Title III grants, which support the activity of the Kipuka Center for Native Hawaiians and Kahaku'ula, our Hawaiian language college. Despite their teaching responsibilities, our faculty bring in significant funding for their research also, much of which enables our students to get valuable research experience alongside those faculty partners. The Campus Research Council working with Vice Chancellor Roney, is working on ways to give faculty more support in applying for competitive grants and their research in general. And on this slide, you see a few examples, all of which are featured in our Hilo stories. Examples of research on our Aina and ocean environments, from whales, coral reefs, taro, and ohia, and the way the work of our faculty and students benefits the Aina. Further enabled by drone technology and data science, research at Hilo makes a difference in our environment. So much of what I've covered in the foregoing slides and all of the charts and tables is available for further review on our website, on the Institutional Research, Hilo Stories, and Long Range Budget Planning Committee websites. But I know many of you have logged on to hear more about where we're going and not necessarily where we are today. So we will now talk about that future. Strategic planning activity was already well underway when I arrived in Hilo nearly 2 years ago. I read the materials from the pre-planning activities and visited with units across the campus to talk story and hear what the strengths and concerns of this campus were. I heard about the desire to work across college and divisional lines. I heard pride in our hands-on learning opportunities and a wish that we could do more. I heard well-deserved pride in our diversity, but I also heard from those who did not feel that we were here for them. I saw potential everywhere and a desire to enroll more students and to serve those students better. On one level, our mission is simple. We exist to educate students, to confer degrees and certificates. But I know for all of us, our mission and vision are so much more than that. The University of Hawaii at Hilo exists to improve the quality of life on this island, in this state, and in the Pacific region. Our purpose is to empower leaders who will cultivate opportunity in our communities. We challenge students to reach their academic, personal, and professional goals through hands-on learning in our rich natural and cultural environments. We recognize that one learns from many sources, as you have seen on the bottom of each of these slides if you've been looking. A'ohe, pau ka ike, I ka halau ho'okahi. And thus we recognize that our campus Ohana has much to learn from the Aina and the community. A learning institution must be an institution that learns. And in order to learn, we need to listen to our students, our community, and to one another. Through all of this listening, 3 strategic goals have emerged. The first, supporting student success with a focus on equity. Second, strengthening our relationship with our region. And third, supporting and strengthening our campus culture. Goal 1, improving student success with a focus on equity. I mentioned earlier that our diversity is our strength, but that is only truly meaningful if we focus on equity and remove barriers to opportunity, fair treatment, and access for all. We must believe that all students can learn. Diversity goes beyond racial and ethnic identity and includes gender identity, sexual orientation, one's unique abilities and challenges, and one's background and lived experiences. Imagine a Hilo where every student feels supported in their identity and their life's journey. The newly constituted Committee for Excellence in Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion has already begun this important work, but they cannot do the equity work alone. It must become part of everything we do. If we attend to our mission, our enrollment will rise. A student-ready institution focused on student success is an institution in which transfer students feel affirmed, rather than thinking that maybe they missed out on something by starting elsewhere. An institution focused on student success is one in which every employee knows that they play a role in ensuring that our students thrive. This can be as simple as asking a student what their goal is for their education, or asking them how their midterm went. It includes smiling when we see a student on campus, or helping the student find an answer to a question and not just send them to another office. I keep a tea leaf rose on my desk, given to me in fall 2019 by a student who was in crisis. While I could not solve the crisis for her, as we found ourselves on opposite sides of the Mauna Kea controversy, I could listen. And this tea leaf rose reminds me to make the time to listen and to lead with my heart when I can. An institution focused on student success is one in which academic and student affairs units collaborate, where faculty and staff collaborate, and where we make decisions with students in mind. This is the goal. I love this photo. I love photos of graduates generally, but this one in particular speaks to me. That's not to say that we can meet every single need of every single student, but it does mean pushing ourselves outside our own comfort zones for the sake of our students, and always with equity at the forefront. At a Hilo focused on student success, every student, regardless of background, will have access to the best that Hilo has to offer. As more students persist and graduate, more students will choose Hilo because they will see it as a place where students flourish. In order to create this student-ready institution, we will listen to students and prospective students. We will analyze our policies and processes to make sure that they are equitable and supportive. This work has already begun. The Lumina Foundation is helping the entire system do an audit of our financial aid policies to make sure that we are as equitable as possible. We will continue to strive for a welcoming environment in which students have role models who look like them. We will study our data to determine which programs are most successful for our students. In order to create a student-ready Hawaiian and Pacific Islander serving institution, we will continue to ground our work in Hawaiian values. We will work on continuous improvement of both academic and support programs so that students will not only thrive on our campus, but also be successful when they graduate. This includes keeping academic programs up to date and relevant through program review and improvement, as well as building out career services. We will use some of the federal relief funding to support peer assistants whose own success can help lead the way for their junior peers. Goal 2, strengthening our relationship with our region. During the recent County Sustainability Summit, one of the speakers stated that this island is a gift, and I truly believe that to be true. This island lives and grows like no other place on Earth, as we are often reminded by earthquake and lava flows. The Importance of Place Strategic Doing Committee has examined how place impacts academics, the student experience, hiring and retention, professional development, promotion and tenure, community engagement, regional economic and educational needs, research and collaborative efforts, campus culture, and our physical facility. One of the sustainable products of this committee is Kalea o ka Uluau, a 24-episode podcast with installments released twice monthly in 2021. The purpose of this podcast is to ho'okama aina listeners to the island of Hawaii, starting in Hilo and moving clockwise around the island to Puna, Ka'u, Kona, Kohala, and Hamakua. Episodes acquaint listeners with key places, histories, people, traditions, and lessons from each place. Our future success as an institution is inextricably linked to the future of this island. Our county has one of the lowest college-going rates in the state. But as we partner with our pre-K through 14 colleagues, we can encourage more students to consider college. On the other end of that pathway, though, we also need to continue to work with public and private sector employers to ensure that jobs are available for our students as they graduate. Part of this cycle is continuing to improve our offerings in areas such as allied health and education, two areas in which local employers have a perennial need. Another part is working across the UH system and the state to develop new employment sectors as we try to further diversify our economy. In addition, we will ensure that the meaning, quality, and integrity of our degrees, to use our accreditor's terminology, includes a strong connection to the aina and the community through hands-on learning experiences. True partnership with this place and its people translates into ideas, collaborative learning and research, reciprocal relationships that make a difference in local, regional, and global lives of people, and contributes to a resilient and sustainable future for Hawaii. Where we can, we will align our efforts with those of the community. Discussions of cross and interdisciplinary programs have already begun in academic affairs. We can design undergraduate and graduate curricula that engages students around issues that they find important. When students see the way in which what they study has an impact on their community, they participate in that study more deeply and are more successful. Applied learning experiences through undergraduate and graduate research, to internships, to service, to travel, to leadership, must be available to every student, so that every student, whether they were born here or arrived from elsewhere to study here, feels the power and the meaningfulness of this place and wants to malama aina. Former Vice Chancellor Hahn related to me that he recently heard a member of our local community liken UH Hilo to a snow globe. A pretty thing that was dropped onto the island and that people were proud to have around, but frustrated because for many, there seemed to be no way in. That image has stayed with me, and some of you have heard it over and over again because it has stayed with me. But as I contemplate our relationship with this community, it is a lesson. Can we become a public garden instead, where our community from Keiki to Kupuna feels welcome and inspired? We have expertise and intellectual resources to share. We live in this community. We are part of this community. So I invite each of you today to contemplate what that means for the work that we do. Goal 3, supporting and strengthening our campus culture. Our first two goals require sustained effort, skill, and collaboration. They deserve our best selves, but no one person needs to feel that they are alone in this work. A healthy university is one in which people support their colleagues. While they may work with humility, they are proud of the institution and feel that their efforts are recognized and rewarded. Personal humility, organizational pride. If we focus on our mission of improving the quality of life for our students and our community, it is far easier to trust one another and support one another around these shared goals. I know we can do this because we've been doing it for the past year in response to COVID. We need to take those instincts that allow us to pull together in a crisis and make them part of the way we operate all the time. As we move from crisis management to strategic planning and growth, we will find new ways to incorporate gratitude from one another into our day-to-day activity. This includes, but goes beyond, supervisors telling employees when they're doing a good job. It means peers appreciating the work of one another and offering to lend a hand when a colleague is having a bad day or facing a challenge. Another item on my desk is a challenge coin from Washington, D.C., gifted to me by a faculty member when I was a dean. This faculty member was a pain in my neck, and I didn't always use the word neck, even to his face. A staunch advocate for his program, his facilities, and his students. But he would also show up on the weekend to help with the community art fair. He would stay after hours if his students needed his advice. And he was an amazing teacher and mentor to generations of students. I keep the coin on my desk to remind me that even dissenting or difficult voices are worth listening to, and that I should look past surface disagreements to see the contribution that each member of our Ohana makes to the success of our students. I invite you to join me in that effort. Smile. We can see it in your eyes even if you've got a mask on. Smile. Express gratitude. Look out for one another. Along with colleagues across the system, we are looking to build a stronger and future-focused, student-centered organizational infrastructure by improving facilities and operations. Strengthening our culture also means that we provide employees with the tools that they need to be successful, from onboarding to professional development. And it also means that we hold each member of our Ohana accountable for their responsibilities. We can't do the latter without doing the former. It is crucial that we do our best to align training and reward structures with our mission and our vision. To that end, we will be developing more professional development opportunities for employees and reviewing our tenure and promotion guidelines to make sure that faculty receive credit for the critical work they do, such as mentoring student research, community engaged scholarship, or high quality teaching, to name just a few. The equity values that our first goal area outlined must also be applied here to faculty and staff as we review our policies and procedures to make sure that we nurture our diversity and support equity. So in the coming weeks, we will circulate a draft strategic plan that further elucidates these goals, has some strategies and actions along with them, and an action plan for the campus and community comment. These 3 goals may not encompass everything that every person might want to see, but they will enable us to build on our strengths and create a sustainable future for our university and our community. Too often in the history of UH Hilo, good ideas have arisen, thrived for a moment, and then faded when a single advocate moved on or the funding ran out. In a post-pandemic UH Hilo, we do not want to go back to normal. We must rise up and do better, guided by our values and building on what we have learned about ourselves over this past year. By focusing our efforts, partnering with community, and paying attention to our students' needs, we can and will institutionalize and sustain successful initiatives, as well as hold space for innovation and evolution. We will need to make strategic investments of time and money to forward these goals and build on our strengths. We will need to figure out what we can stop doing in order to hold space for the things that will forward our vision and be the university our community deserves. In the end, the 3 strategic goals I have outlined today come down to commitments. A commitment to our students, a commitment to this place, and a commitment to one another. Let these commitments guide our journey as together we fulfill the potential that UH Hilo has always had within it. Our students and our community deserve no less. We know who we are, and we know what kind of university this island needs. We know we are strong, and we know we can do this. I mua and malama pono. And by the way, please get a vaccine. Thank you.